Heareth be news. The war criminal Loki was killed last week after suffering a fatal stab wound by a cursed warrior, which is odd because that man seemed a lot more formidable than that, but what if ever. The only witness to this incident was his brother Thor, who has since claimed that he died in an act of heroism and turned good at the end after, trying to do a genocide in Midgard. Also, it sure is convenient since Thor is the one who broke him out of war crime jail. In probably related news, the King Odin sure has been acting oddly garish lately. Like, with the risk of getting executed, it kind of seems like he's Loki. Because we all know Loki can take the form of anyone, so perhaps someone should look into that. Just a thought. After all, Loki was once slammed repeatedly into the ground by a giant green monster, so it just seems unlikely a single stab would kill him. Again, don't want to be banished or some shit, but Odin was like 5,000 years old, and lately he's been acting like he's 1,000. I don't know, maybe the dude got a hold of a time stone, but we should at least check his blood for an obedience potion or something, right? Because I thought the whole thing was that we didn't want Loki in charge. What with the whole genociding the frost giants thing, and now this whole business in Midgard. Can't stress enough that I do not want to be banished to go make f***ing chalices in Nidavellir or thrown in the kiln. But it just seems like we've been bouncing from one all-father to the next for thousands of years here, and it might be time to think about forward progress. Yes, it's great that Odin fought off the frost giants thousands of years ago, but it sure seems like he's just riding that victory into the ground. Cool, you helped Midgard once a long time ago, but what are we doing for Midgard now? Or any of the other realms, for that matter. I guess you could argue that Thor helped out with the recent disaster, or averted a worse disaster, I suppose. But that was only because Loki got away in the first place. Loki, a frost giant terrorist that we trained, did a coup and then lost track of after he freaked out and tried to use the Bifrost to murder an entire planet. It's wild when you think about how concerned Thor was about border security when our own Rainbow Bridge laser is the biggest threat to the universe. Not to mention when Thor was immediately banished during that time for wanting to start a f***ing war. Remembereth that leaked audio from inside the House of Odinson that everyone was outraged about and then forgot a week later.
March into Jotunheim as you once did. Teach them a lesson. Break their spirit so they'll never dare try to cross our borders again.
You're thinking only as a warrior.
This was an act of war.
It was the act of but a few, doomed to fail.
Look how far they got!
We will find the breach in our defenses, and it will be sealed.
As king of Asgard...
But you're not king!
Yes, our blonde special boy Odinson just casually floated the idea of invading another realm to teach them a lesson. Why aren't we talking about that still? Loki is a lot of things, but he is the only one who actually tried to return the Casket of Ancient Winters back to the Frost Giants. It is, after all, theirs, and yet we just stole it thousands of years ago and refused to give it back because we're, the police of the 9 realms? Again, Loki is a real turd. But if returning the source of their power actually creates peace with Jotunheim, then frankly, I don't care who does it. Perhaps it's a better solution than f***ing invading their land, Thor. And so, just to recap, Thor Odinson broke a treaty with the Frost Giants and was banished for a week for his arrogance right before Odin got super sick and had Loki take over. And gee, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't have 5,000-year-old guys in charge of everything for this reason. I know we all laughed when Odin got sick after he kept publicly calling the Odin sleep a media hoax and blamed it all on Muspelheim, but that probably should have been a wake-up call for us. I mean, Loki nearly committed 2 consecutive genocides before a bunch of puny Midgard heroes had to catch him. Not Odin, not the goddamn Einherjar, but 5 puny mortals, and I guess Thor helped. And by helped, I mean broke Loki out of jail and then got him stabbed. Sorry, allegedly stabbed. And now, some lighter news in a returning it segment that we call, What's the Dealith with Thor's Eyebrows? Hey, what's the dealith with Thor's eyebrows? They were blonde at first and almost blended in with his skin, and then they got way darker a few years later and did he dye them? Does Thor dye his eyebrows? And if he does, then does that mean he dyes his hair? Or did he have blonde hair and decide to dye his eyebrows to match them and then gradually decided not to dye them? Or were they first blonde and he now dyes them brown? What's going on there? Thor, what's going on with your eyebrows, man? Emaileth me about your eyebrows. Anyway, this has been What's the Dealeth with Thor's Eyebrows? Well, hope I don't get executed for that. These Odinsons love to act like there's a free press in Asgard, but boy, most days it seems like it's us against them. There's all this performative back and forth between brothers and fathers, but at the end of the day, they're all just hanging out. They're in their castles with their frosty mugs of ale, and we're out here being kept in the dark world with our frosty mugs of ale. But, hey, perhaps we can use that soul forge to heal people besides just the king's son's girlfriend, you know? Maybe a little universal soul forge for all? But instead of any measure to help the common folk, the king's two idiot sons keep f***ing up realm after realm and receiving exactly zero accountability. Are we even going to try and clean up Midgard? According to Odin, Thor's hammer has the power to both destroy and build. But I sure as shit haven't seen any example of the latter. Dude just grabbed shawarma with his new Midgard friends and left. And I know it's just some Fenris shit rock on the other side of the galaxy, but it sure feels like we have some responsibility, right? The king's son opened a big black hole and shoved a bunch of Chitauri through it. Where did he even get those Chitauri? Those were last seen with Thanos at the Zen Warberry massacre, and now the king's son is hanging out with them? Did anybody look into that? I don't know, maybe I'm paranoid, but a member of the royal family was seen palling around with a cybernetic hive mind, surfing on f***ing leviathans and shit, and nobody seems to be questioning that. Here is some news. The mad titan Thanos continues his tour of destroying half of every planet and randomly abducting children. According to reports, the swole genocide enthusiast is seeking out the Infinity Stones, one of which is right here, so maybe we need to worry about that. So far, the only response has been a group of protesters who showed up in front of Thanos' tiny floating space rock, who he then immediately eviscerated. So, you know, maybe some concern is required. Maybe some concern that Loki has been hanging out with Thanos' freaking army, or that Thor, the guy who originally wanted to go to war with the Frost Giants, f***ed up with his murderous brother, and then just claimed he got stabbed somewhere with no witnesses, and then Odin starts acting like Loki? Perhaps I'm as nutty as a Ratatasker, but it sure seems like bouncing leadership from one all-father to the next without holding any elections or something like that is bad news for all of us, and it's just a matter of time until they get us blown up or some shit like... Wait, yes? It's a magic rock. Yes? I've just been informed that I have been banished.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Here's the evergreen end plate to ask you to like and subscribe. It's any day of the year where you are.